Yes. Cool. So yesterday we had started with this topic called sexually transmitted diseases, and we have looked at the basics of these. What are those STDs? And we looked over through syphilis, which is one of the STD that it happens with the bacteria, which is Spirochete, Treponema pallidum, and then it goes through different stages depending on the severity, and then ends with the tertiary syphilis, which is the end stage. And like as usual, the common route of transmission for all STDs is the sexual contact and so on. Then we also had looked at gonorrhea, which is caused by Neisseria gonorrhoeae, and the symptoms, they are more or less similar in most of the cases, that are some lesions on the genital tracts. So in this case specifically, it was the pus producing discharge, and then pain over genitalia, burning during urination, and so on. The treatment, again, for most of these STDs, that remains antibiotic, which is one of the best choice, and sometimes also the symptomatic treatment, right? That is, in this case, it was penicillin and ampicillin in terms of antibiotic. And we also had a brief discussion around what is this acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, that is called as AIDS, and it is caused by the human immunodeficiency virus, that is HIV. And we had a discussion around the treatment, which is still not yet completely there, but this antiretroviral therapy, which is widely being used these days to keep the infection of HIV in control. And nevirapine is specifically used for avoiding the mother to child HIV transmission. So that is the general outline of what we had looked at in the last class. The next infection that we are going to look at, or the sexually transmitted disease that we are going to look at, is the genital herpes. Now, this is one of the very common infection that is found around, and there are different viruses. So the herpes simplex virus, which is called as HSV, that is the virus which is responsible for causing this disease. And this disease, or rather this virus, can infect any part of the body, not just the genitalia. So there are specific two types of HSV, that is HSV1, herpes simplex virus 1, and herpes simplex virus 2. Now, HSV1 is more related to the mouth and face, that is, it causes infection in the mouth and face. So if you ever notice a kind of blister or kind of skin being erupted over the lip like structure, or around the lips, or even inside the oral mucosa, that is mostly because of the HSV infection, HSV1 infection. This is little different than mouth ulcers in terms of the pus formation and so on. Mouth ulcers can be due to just stress or different activities, metabolic activities related to the cells. Could be an infection in case of mouth ulcers, but this one is very specific with respect to the blisters forming in mouth and face due to HSV virus infection, HSV1. Mostly children are easily prone to this infection from the general interaction with adults, and may involve sharing of the dining utensils, lip balms, toothbrush, or kissing, and so on. It can like get transferred using the different things. Herpes simplex virus is difficult to get removed from our body. So once it enters the body, it is almost impossible to remove it from the body, and it stays in the dormant stage within the body. It does not mean that once the virus is inside the body, it will always keep creating infections. It may or may not, depending on how is the immune system of that particular individual. So it remains for the rest of the life within that individual, and the outbreaks of that infection could occur during conditions such as menstruation in case of female, or the use of steroid, or fatigueness, or stress for that matter, like physical stress or mental stress. These are the conditions which can cause the outbreak of this infection again because of that virus. So usually what happens is, let's say once the first time infection has happened, and because of the immune reactions within the body, the virus is kept at very low threshold, and then it goes into the dormant stage. And when the body again goes to the stress level due to any reason, can be menstruation, drugs, or the physical or mental stress, due to any of the reason, this virus has actually gotten a chance to like re uh, regenerate again from the dormant stage, and it becomes active and again cause the infection. So that way it will keep happening throughout the lifetime. So it's best to keep the immunity at a good level to reduce the HSV1 infection. Then HSV2, that is herpes simplex virus 2, it's again another type of sexually transmitted infection. It's just the difference of the virus, and it specifically affects the genital area. And the risk factors, that is how does it happen, is again having multiple sexual partners, immature immune system, like I said, in case of when the immune system is like kind of malfunctioning, then in that case this virus will get a chance to cause the infection again and again there. So having AIDS or HIV, again in this case the immune system is compromised, so HSV2 can take over the body's cells, and that way it can cause infection. Female are also prone to this disease. Like in case of male, it's something similar to the females as well. And sometimes it might be inherited from a mother to the child during the birth time. And the efficient method to avoid this infection is to avoid any oral, vaginal, or anal type of sex, that the sexual intercourse. So that way, this infection can be like like of course with the infected individual. This does not mean that you do not have any sexual intercourse. It means with the infected individual, this method should be completely avoided. So that is the HSV1 and HSV2. Symptoms, these are very clear symptoms. Blistering sores. Blisters, you know that like kind of bump like thing that happens over the skin. So in this case, especially over the genital area or the oral area, depending on which virus it is. Itching, lot of itching happens. Pain in the genitals during urination. Because of the infection, it can cause fever, loss of appetite, weakness, and so on. So these are various symptoms uh, that occurs because of the HSV in general. Then the treatment, the most common and most efficient treatment to suppress the infection is acyclovir. So whenever you have this oral herpes, the HSV1 infection, we use the topical acyclovir cream, which is I guess 2% cream, and which is applied over the lip structure wherever there are these blisters or sores, and then that goes away within a span of 3 to 5 days. So that is acyclovir. There are other analogs, or what you can siblings molecules of acyclovir, which is valacyclovir and famciclovir. These are also used in the severe cases of these HSV. If the infection has happened systemically, that means from oral it has spread all over the body, or from genital herpes infection, it has happened all over the body, then the injections are used of these compounds. And that way, like whole body infection is being taken care of. So that is genital herpes. Any question here in the herpes? That's relatively again a simpler topic. Just the differentiation is in terms of virus 1 and virus 2. Okay, so then cancroid, that is another type of sexually transmitted disease. It is caused by the pathogenic bacterium, which is known as Haemophilus ducreyi. That is the name of the bacteria. And the symptoms in this case, again, the bleeding ulcers will develop over the genitalia, accompanied by the swelling of the nearby lymph node. Again, this nearby lymph node means the groin area, which has lymph nodes, and within that groin, there will be swelling of this lymph node due to this infection. Transmission is again sexual contact with the infected partner, and the treatment involves the classical antibiotic, that is erythromycin, ciprofloxacin, and so on. This one, the third name, that is ceftriaxone. It is one of the special category of antibiotic which is called as cephalosporins, and these cephalosporins, they are used in case of severity of the infection. Usually, if you go to a doctor nowadays, if you have a general fever or so, doctor usually prescribe what we call as antibiotics to take care of the bacterial infection. Now, what happens there is, ideally a doctor is supposed to give you a very low grade antibiotic, which is just going to take care of the basic broad spectrum of the bacteria. And if that does not help, then you go for higher level of medicines. That is something like cephalosporin or the ceftriaxone. But nowadays, what doctor do is they directly give the higher level of the antibiotics, so that they irrespective of whatever infection is, it is being taken care of. And that has led to multi-drug resistance like situation, and the bacteria, they have been developing a resistance to these antibiotics over the time. So earlier, penicillin was very active in most of the conditions. Now penicillin is no more active in certain diseases, and the reason being, the bacteria, they have developed a resistance against the action of penicillin, so they do not get harmed by the action of the penicillin at all. And that is why the newer varieties of penicillin, they have come to market, like ampicillin or amoxicillin. These are the recent as in, still they are very old, maybe 40-50-year-old, but they are relatively very recent molecules. So that is the treatment. Again, this sulfamethoxazole, this is one type of antibiotic which are called as sulfonamides. Yeah, sulfonamides, that means sulfur containing antibiotic. That is one category of antibiotic, and from there this example is there. So that is this chancroid sexually transmitted disease. Next one is the chlamydiasis, again caused by Chlamydia trachomatis. Trachomatis. Again, this bacteria is found in the semen and the vaginal fluid, so ultimately the reproductive fluids, and it's the obligate intracellular pathogen. That means it cannot survive again outside, so it is always an intracellular pathogen, and it infects the cervix as well as the urethra. Urethra in case of male as well as female, and cervix of course in female, and can live in the rectum and even in throat sometimes. And based on that, it can cause the infections like trachoma, which is the blindness due to this virus, that is specifically called as trachoma. This has something to do with, like, if the your hands or the fingers, they have infection, and then you rub your eyes with the fingers, right? That way, then this eyes will also get infection, and then trachoma like situation might arise. Perinatal infection, again natal, if you remember, that relates to the pregnancy period, right? Perinatal, that is the around the fetus during the pregnancy. Peri is outside the fetus. When this infection happens, that is perinatal infection. That is within the mother's body when she is still pregnant. That is perinatal infection. Urethritis, inflammation of urethra. Epididymitis, that is inflammation of epididymis. Mucopurulent cervicitis. Now this is specifically like the inflammation of cervix with that mucus of the cervix is changed to yellowish thick liquid, that is the mucopurulent cervicitis. Inflammation of fallopian tube, again a simple terminology, rectal pain with mucus and occasional bleeding, that can also happen in chlamydiasis, and it can also lead in case of severe infection, pelvic inflammation, that is the whole of the pelvic area having inflammation, and can increase the risk of cervical cancer in females. So that will happen as well. It's obviously like if the cells are more prone to this infection, this chlamydiasis, they allow the cells to express more tumorigenic proteins, and because of that, the cells they turn into from tumor to cancer. So that is the like a simplest path towards cancer. Symptoms in men: sore tip of penis, itching, burning of testicles, burning during urination, and so on, and white watery discharge from the penis. That is another common symptom. In case of female, that is mucus-like discharge from vagina, pain, burning sensation during urination. So, like all these infections, because they cause irritation to the epithelial structure, and that is why this burning or inflammation or pain or some discharge that happens. So these are the symptoms. Transmission again by sexual contact, and the treatment is done using these antibiotics called as tetracycline, erythromycin, and rifampicin. Rifampicin is again another broad spectrum antibiotic, and I guess if I'm correct, rifampicin is also used in tuberculosis. I'm not sure if it is rifampin or rifampicin. But yeah, one of the brothers of this category is used in the tuberculosis as well. Tetracycline, common example you know would be doxycycline. Like, you know, whenever you have medicines at home, just go over and look at the content. You will find this commonly. Erythromycin is usually used in the throat infection. Like, what is that brand name? Rithrax or something, and no, something I don't remember. So that is most commonly used in like this common cold, common fever, or common cough kind of situation. Trichomoniasis, another STD caused by this protozoa Trichomonas vaginalis. And now don't go by the name, it's not only the infection of the vagina, but because this would have found in the vagina, the name would have been given like that. So it is a parasite that infects male, causing urethritis, epididymitis, prostatitis, that is inflammation of prostate, and in female it can cause inflammation of vagina and foul smelling yellow vaginal discharge with burning sensation. Sexual contact is the method of transmission, and metronidazole, that is one of the again another antibiotic that is being used for the treatment. What you need to remember in all of these cases is probably the uh, pathogen which is involved, some sort of symptoms which are different than the other sexually transmitted diseases, and mode of transmission is same for everything, and maybe one or two of the like commonly used drug treatment. So if you can remember that, that is good enough from all of these topics. And I guess this is, yeah, the genital warts. Warts is nothing but the lesion or kind of outgrowth, right? So the soft growth on the moist skin of genitalia around the anus, which is sexually transmitted by human papilloma virus, HPV. So these genital warts, they are specifically caused by HPV infection. These warts, you can also Google the pictures, of course. But these are like, if there is a little hump like structure, like, you know, when mosquito bites, there is a hump that is formed, which is redness. But in this case, it's more of the soft growth of the tissue itself, because of the infection happening to those cells, because due to the HPV virus. There are quite a few different types of HPV that can affect genitals, and their infection may not produce any symptom at the start. When it is just infected individual, may not show any symptom, but as and when it grows further, the infection clears off either on its own after the viral cycle is completed, or in some cases, again, when the stress like situation or when immunity is compromised, on all those cases, these genital warts will appear as a cluster of skin colored, very small outgrowths on any of the genital structures. So penis, scrotum, groin, thighs, or around anus, and even in case of female, around vagina, and again around anus, and so on. So all these will lead to the these genital warts. And again, like we discussed, apart from these genital warts, it can also lead to itching, burning, and vaginal discharge. And in severe of the cases, these warts can also appear on the hands, lips, and even in the oral area, like this herpes, oral herpes. Something similar happens in case of genital warts as well. They will show symptom in the oral area. Treatment: the virus cannot be eliminated from the blood, so it will stay in the blood. Once infected, it will stay in the blood. It goes to dormant stage if there is treatment, like in terms of antibiotic. Symptomatic treatment is usually done with the antiviral drugs. Again, the antiviral drugs includes like acyclovir and so on. And these warts can disappear, but not the virus. So warts will go away. That is what is symptomatic treatment. But the virus cannot be eliminated completely from the body, and it will stay within the body. So that is genital warts. Then the last one, I guess, yeah, is the hepatitis B. This is again another virus which is caused by the hepatitis virus, and it can infect the liver and can cause both acute as well as chronic liver hepatitis. Hepatitis is inflammation of liver. Acute means there is sudden infection surge, and that gives and it is like kind of short lived. That is acute hepatitis. Chronic means the infection happens, even the symptoms occur over a long period of time, and that is what is chronic and acute. Acute is short, chronic is long. So that is acute and chronic liver hepatitis. Symptoms includes common symptoms like headache, liver, because it is related to liver. It also shows jaundice, like yellowing of the skin, eyes, dark urine, and then fatigue, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, and so on. It can also lead to liver cirrhosis, which is nothing but the higher inflammation of the liver cells will cause the death of those cells. That is what is liver cirrhosis, or degradation of those cells, and it might also lead to cancer of the liver. Transmission again through infected blood or body fluids like saliva, menstrual fluid, vaginal fluid, or semen. The hepatitis B can be transmitted. And treatment is usually there is a vaccine which has been developed quite early, which is given within the first 24 hours of the birth to the infant, and usually followed by the 3 doses, like booster doses later on. One of the very interesting fact with hepatitis B in terms of treatment is there is a genetically engineered interferon injection. Interferon is a kind of cytokine molecule which is released by the inflammatory cells within your immune cells within your body in response to viral infection. They are interferons. You can check it out later in more details if you wish to, but that is like a small molecule which is similar to antibody in a way, but not exactly similar. So these are the interferon molecules, and there is an interferon which is available for hepatitis B infection. So that is hepatitis B. So with this, actually, we finish whole of the chapter. And for just for your infection, not infection, just for your information, I have put a schedule of what are those different vaccines which are being given. This is the timeline you can see, and you can Google out those names if you wish to again. So there is this hepatitis B, you can see. So there is diphtheria, tetanus, and whooping cough. Like so, there are so many like this. MMR is this measles, mumps, and rubella kind of diseases. So you can figure out these terminologies later, but this is the overall schedule, which is kind of accepted all over. And there might be some more additions to this based on, I don't know how old is this. This is like saying 2013. I don't know if there are new additions to this list, but you can read. So there is a reference also attached to this slide. You can read more. This is the WHO list, so you can read more around it whenever you want. Okay,
So,
yes.
but like, is it safe giving such a vaccine to a child? I mean, the child is not even 24 like hours old, right?
So
And
these vaccines, they have
yeah.
already been tested in the infants, and then only now they are used widely for those infants.
So, but vaccine is like a weak virus, right, or a dead virus.
Yeah, but not always.
But
Right?
it like the child might get a serious infection, and
So
if
that
the
is,
child is so small, it won't be able to fight it. Yeah.
you are assuming that we are always using attenuated virus, which is weakened virus. In that case, there is a chance, right? But most of the vaccines which are being given to the infant, they are never attenuated virus. They are always virus particles, or they are completely dead virus, which is taken out of their genetic material. So that is the usual case with the baby's virus, not virus, baby's vaccines. Okay. Any more questions? Okay, so then I want to discuss that part which Pratham had asked some time back, and we said we'll discuss at the end. So, in case of homosexual, or your question was more for gay people and not the lesbian, Pratham.
So like any is fine.
Sorry.
So you can take any, sir. Like
Okay, so in case of usually homosexual people, what happens is there is like in case of heterosexual couples, what we call it as a penovaginal sex. So there is sexual intercourse between a penis and the vagina. Now, in case of homosexuals, that is a gay man, there is always like penoanal sex. Now, not necessarily they have to do it, it's of course the wish of the couple. We don't have to get into that part, but if at all that kind of sex happens, or that kind of sexual intercourse happens, then there is a chance of similar type of infection. If the chance is equally there in the heterosexual couple due to the penovaginal sex, or what we call as penetrative sex. So if the penetrative sex happens between any of the homosexual couple, there is also equal chance that this kind of infection can happen, because it's ultimately one of the partner is infected with either of these HPV or hepatitis B or gonorrhea or any of these bacteria or virus, right? And the other partner will carry that infection. Now, the chance of having the infection and spreading the infection is higher with homosexual, and the reason being multiple partners. So, and the reason I say this is because usually they don't have stable partners. Like again, nowadays you would know how the relationship works, and it is one step higher in case of homosexual couples, and that is the way they get like they end up having multiple partners. And if you imagine now having multiple partners means you are obviously sleeping with that person, whosoever it is of whichever gender, and if that is being passed on to many people, the chance of spreading that infection is quite high. Now, in case of lesbian couples, they do not have penetrative sex at all as such, if until and unless they use some sex toys, right? Now that is again a different set of issue altogether. Like sex toys, if they at all they are used, they can get infected because they are surfaces, and those surfaces can carry infection when they are being used by the different people, right? So that way there is a chance, even though there is no penetrative sex happening between the lesbian couple. So, and that is when we say the homosexual couples, they are more prone to spreading these infections. And on top of this, like there is of course one more category which is called as bisexual. That means they are gender fluid in terms of their um, sexual activity, right? So they can sleep with a man, or they can sleep with a woman as well, depending on whatever their interest lies. Now, in such cases, there is again a multiple partner, right? More than one partner, we call it a multiple partner. So in that case also, there is quite likely a chance that the infection can be carried forward to different individuals. So that way, the infection can spread.
So it's not, so it's only about like having multiple partners, and it's not that specifically anal sex like has more chance of transmission than penetrative sex.
uh, there is that part as well. See, like if we look at, if we compare the vagina and anus, right? That way, vagina is like made a reproductive structure, can be over the time of evolution, but at this moment, it is a reproductive structure. Anus is not a reproductive structure. It is just a kind of means of the path to take out the excreta from the body. So that way, if you look at it, the anal muscles, they are not so flexible like it is compared to the vaginal muscles. And that way, the whenever there is a penetrative sex or penoanal sex, in that case, the chances of bleeding is higher compared to vaginal sex, and that is when the chances of infection is again higher. So as far as if the epithelial lining of either anus or vagina is intact, the chance of spreading this infection is lower. The moment they are broken in terms of their epithelium, which is higher chance with the anus, then the chance of spreading infection is also higher. So that is the another condition there.
Also, and like you said, there's a higher chance if there is like if there are multiple people. So is it because more people means that more like the like more of them could have HIV? Is
Uh,
it?
Depends. So if, like, let's say X person is homosexual, sleeping with Y person, and Y person is infected, then in that case, and if this X goes around and sleep with A to Z, right, then the chance of having or carrying this infection from Y is quite a lot. So that way it works. Does that answer the question?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So someone has to be infected. So
Yeah.
like if
Yeah. Otherwise, if the healthy individuals are having like sexual intercourse, irrespective of whether it's the penoanal or penovaginal sex, that does not lead to any type of infection on its own. So that is when we say healthy adult or healthy individuals, there is no chance of having infection. But again, that multiple partner case still is in question mark, because that person may not have infection, but that might be carrying in the genital area, and obviously the sexual activity is related to that area. So then the chances of the next person, and again on top of that, if he or she has less immunity, the chance of carrying or having that infection is even higher, right? So that way, there are quite many possibilities to it. Okay. Are there any more questions? Anyone? So if not, then we will stop here for today.